Well, hey everybody, John Rethlin here with every WCW World Champion ranked from worst to best. And yes, along with this, you're going to be seeing some other ranking videos. WCW TV title for the WCW tag titles for the WCW and WWE US Champions and the WCW WWE Cruiserweight Champions. Now, those last two will probably be split up into 2 or 3 parts, but I'm just letting you know, you're going to see some more ranking videos popping up, as I will include little mini angry rants in some of these, but I will pretty much be trying to get away from which was worse and unpopular wrestling opinion for the time to vary up the channel. Plus, I'm going to be super busy this summer, and I like doing this because it gives me a chance to look back on the rich history, for both good and bad, of various championships. Also, I'm only including when the WCW title was recognized. I'm not including the NWA Championship, from when Turner bought the company in late November or early November of '88. And I'm not including that, and I'm not including the International Championship. Now, it doesn't mean that Rick Rude or, Great Muta or Ricky Steamboat or Barry Windham or Ric Flair's NWA title reigns or Sting's first NWA title reign were bad. That doesn't mean any of that at all. That does not mean any disrespect to them. I'm just including when they said that the WCW World title, that was recognized as a championship. So, just letting you guys know. So, from 91 to 2001, here we go. 22 different people held the titles, and there were multiple reigns, let me just say that much, especially in 2000 when that thing got vacated and hot potatoed a whole bunch. Let's start off with number 22, Vince Russo. You see that? That's it. Yeah, I'm a proud card-carrying member of the Cult of Cornette, even though I don't always agree with Jim. He is right about Russo. Though I will say this, he goes, a little too overboard. He worked with him, whatever. It's not, it's him. It's his opinion, not me. Russo was not the one that killed WCW. He helped hasten it, but the brass did not want to keep the company afloat. They didn't want to. But Russo making himself world champion, it was worse than Vince McMahon making himself world champion, because WWE could do no wrong in '99. They were still getting high ratings, and they were super hot and everything. By September 2000, when Russo made himself champion, WCW was on its deathbed. It was on its deathbed earlier in the year, to be fair, but yeah, Russo's champion was just atrocious. Well, what do you expect me to say? It was just fucking atrocious. Number 21, Chris Benoit. He held it for 1 day. Won it, sold out 2000 after Bret Hart had to vacate it. Beat Sid. And then left the company. What the fuck else? What the fuck else am I going to say? He held it for 1 day. Number 20, Kurt Angle, 6 days. Yes, Kurt Angle is ranked just above Chris Benoit. He beat Booker T for it and then dropped the title a few days later during the Invasion angle, where I think he won it in July, like late July, something like that. Angle would make a better world champion later on in his career. They were trying anything to add a spark to the WCW, ECW, the Invasion, and the Alliance and all that. Even though they had some great talents, some of the stuff was shit. Quite a bit of it was shit. There were some great moments. Now, it was a cool pop and everything, and Angle held the championship, but it was what it was. Number 19, David Arquette, 12 days. Yes, David Arquette is ranked above Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit. And this is not because of talent. This is because as much as I have railed against Arquette being champion, Arquette loves wrestling, still does. He loved wrestling back then, still loves it now. Has competed in death matches. David, please don't die. It's bad for your health. As Brooke Shields says, when you die, you lose the best part of your life. But with Arquette, he didn't want to become champion. The company wanted him to become champion because they thought it would be good publicity. And they got publicity, but not the right kind. He did good stuff with his money, with his payoffs from any TV show and any pay-per-views he was on, because he gave it to the families or to various wrestlers that were either injured or something like that. That was great. Arquette seems like a great guy. Him being champion was ridiculous, but he didn't want to do it. So I'm putting him a little bit above here because it was bad. It was really bad, but at least David wasn't a bad guy. Let me just say that much. It was stupid, but it wasn't Vince Russo being champion stupid. Because Arquette was actually at least a bit of an athlete and respected wrestling. Russo never did. So then we get to number 18, Chris Jericho. He had 2 reigns as champion. It was 15 days total. Yeah. Did he have 2 reigns? God, I only remember him in 1 reign. But anyway, yeah, he was champion for a little bit. It just, I don't know. I just never necessarily cared for Jericho having this kind of weird tweener role and stuff like that. He was much better as a heel, in my opinion, than he was as a babyface. When he finally turned, and became Undisputed Champion, like later in the year in 2001, it was great. And then they completely cut the momentum out from under him by cutting his legs off. That was at least pretty cool to see him as champion. But yeah, here he barely held it. It just wasn't worth much of anything. By that point, the Invasion had totally run out of steam. Even though that 5-on-5 match at Survivor Series was absolutely incredible, work rate and passion-wise, it was very few ECW, WCW guys, and mostly just WWE guys on both sides, which was ridiculous. Because Vince realized that he fucking screwed the whole thing up. About 3 years ago, well, almost 3 years ago, I actually did a fantasy booking of the Invasion angle in 4 parts and wrote down a whole bunch of stuff in notes and that kind of stuff. And actually, I think I booked it better. I would have run Vince McMahon out of a ton of money and everything, but I think I booked it a whole lot better. But then again, all fans, and again, fan, just a fan. Not a reporter, not a wrestling journalist, not somebody that has inside sources. I'm a wrestling fan. All you guys watching are fellow wrestling fans. And some of you guys actually have been watching my channel long enough to remember when I did that stuff. But anyway, back to Jericho. Yeah, he was fine, but it just wasn't very good because he didn't hold it very long. And then we get to Jeff Jarrett, number 17, 59 days, 4 reigns. Yeah, he didn't even hold it for 15 days on average. He was a 3-time, 4-time champion. He broke 6,000 guitars, as Mike Graham said, never drew a dime. Jeff Jarrett was not a main eventer. Jeff Jarrett was never a main eventer at all. He made himself a main eventer in NWA TNA, and it was what it was. It just wasn't very good. DDP, 3 reigns, 30 days. He's at the number 16 spot. DDP winning the title was cool. He never held it for very long, but he was the people's champion of WCW. They should have had DDP versus The Rock. DDP beating 3 other guys, Hogan, Sting, Flair, at Spring Stampede 99, which I did a retro review of, and I really enjoyed that one, even though it was in Tacoma and I wasn't able to see it live. Disappointed, but I don't regret it. DDP did only hold the title a couple other times and never for very long, but it was great to see him finally get recognition. But they should add him instead of Booker T face The Rock, which, speaking of which, The Rock, 2 reigns, 97 days. People's Champion versus People's Champion. Tell me that wouldn't have been something good. But nope, let's make DDP the Undertaker stalker. But bad Invasion angles aside, even though there's going to be a few included in this thing, because there is some stuff about the Invasion. In fact, actually, I think I'm pretty much out of it after this. The Rock, yeah, The Rock, he did look legit as world champion. He did. Because Austin was a heel on that side. Rock was facing Booker T. They had a good feud. They could have had a better feud. I would still would like seeing DDP versus The Rock. But, hey, The Rock, if you want to have a legit guy as champion, it worked. And Rock and Booker T did create some magic. Had some good promos, that kind of stuff. But anyway, we get to number 14. Bret Hart, 56 days as champion. Look, and he had 2 reigns with it. And he had to relinquish it after his second reign had barely begun because he suffered a severe concussion and a few more after that match with Goldberg at Starrcade 99, and then subsequent matches that he had after that. And it just, it's not Goldberg's fault. I was upset at Goldberg before, and I'm not going to get upset about that. It was a botch. Botches happen. He feels bad that he injured Bret. But Bret's time as champion, they waited too long to get Bret the championship. They waited too long. He could have been, had he not gotten injured, I still think he would have been out of his contract after October or November of 2000. But yeah, just his time as champion just wasn't very good. Yeah, injuries undercut it, but still, it just didn't fucking work. I'm sorry. It just didn't. And I love Bret. Injuries are the main reason, but whatever. We then get to number 13, Randy Savage, 53 days, 4 reigns. Randy Savage never held the title long without giving it back to Hulk Hogan. 2 of his reigns, I believe, ended because of Hulk Hogan. Yeah. He had a great feud with Ric Flair when he first won the title. That was great stuff. But other than that, no. His time as champion was not very good, and it's not a fault of Randy's. He was a legit world champion, even at that stage of his career. Even in 99, when he last won the world title, he dropped it to Hogan very soon after. Because Hogan always had to be lording over Randy and, right behind him in his shadow, hovering over him, however you want to put it. Hogan just always had to be hovering over Randy and ruining stuff for him. And I will go to my grave thinking that. But still, Randy was legit, even though he didn't hold the title for long. Number 12, Sid Vicious, 77 days, 2 reigns. Yeah, I like Sid. Sid was a legit champion and didn't even hold it 3 months. And he was the longest reigning champion of 2000 in WCW. Think about that. The longest reigning champion in WCW, and he didn't even hold it for 3 months. He barely held it for 2.5 months, over 2 reigns. That just shows you how fucking ruined WCW was at that point. Number 11, Kevin Nash, 96 days, 4 reigns as champion. Didn't tear his quad in any single one of them. Yeah, I get why Nash was champion. I don't think him being champion was the worst thing in the world. He wasn't champion for 358 days like he was as WWE champion. But yeah, not really that good. It wasn't. I mean, but WCW at that point was pretty much fucking ruined. I mean, Goldberg's streak getting broken wasn't going to be the worst thing, but it's how they did it, and then the follow-up, the finger poke, and all that stuff. It just, yeah, it was rotten. It was really fucking rotten. Then he was champion again in 2000, and no one fucking cared. It was bad. Number 10, Booker T, 253 days, 5 reigns. Yes, Booker T is a 5-time WCW champion. He might have mentioned that once or 5 million times. Yes, 5 million, emphasis on the joke. So, Booker, though, great that he became champion. He was somebody that you could fucking trust as champion. I mean, he was champion when he came to WWE, took a buyout and everything because he wanted to work. And Booker, to his credit, did everything he could to make anything work. The Japanese shampoo commercial feud, the non-existent Japanese shampoo commercial feud the non-existent commercial. It was a fight over shampoo between him and Edge. That's the kind of shit they did with him. Though, then you had the Triple H Booker T feud the following Mania, which still bothers me to this day. His time in WCW, though, when he finally won the world title, yes, he lost it a few times. He did win it back on the final Nitro, and he had some good runs as champion. They weren't very long because they waited way too long for him to become champion, but it was what it was. Booker, though, does deserve to be in the top 10 because he was a hell of a champion and really was tremendous for the company, even though the company was on his deathbed. Number 9, Scott Steiner, 120 days, 1 reign. Scott Steiner was legit as a champion at this point, even though he could barely move due to training that he had done. This was pre-Steiner math, by the way. He also was the last good champion they had. I mean, yeah, Booker T closed the company as champion, but Steiner was champion for 4 months. And it actually worked because finally they had a bit of a long-term champion. I mean, 4 months being long-term tells you what state the company was in. But he at least provided some stability and a heel for people to go for. It worked. Sort of. But, by that point, I mean, I would like to have seen what WCW would have done had Bischoff's group been able to buy it. I still think it would have phased out after a couple of years, but it would have been interesting. But Steiner at least was good stability as champion, even if he was not nearly the worker that he was even 5 years prior. Number 8, the Giant, 2 reigns, 118 days. His first reign was during that horrible match where him and the Yeti tried to DP Hogan. Have fun unseeing that. He was a mummy, not a furry monster. I don't get wrestling either sometimes. But then the Giant beat Ric Flair for the world title, I believe, on April 30th. It was April 28th or April 30th, 1996, and held the championship for about 3.5 months. And was legit as champion. He was pretty goddamn good. Now, I mean, he wasn't great. He was young, but he was improving. And he was a pretty good champion. And at that, he provided a little bit of stability. He was different to Ric Flair, who he beat for the title. That was pretty good. Not great. And his feud with Hogan wasn't all that great. Anytime they did the goddamn feud. But for his inexperience, he was a pretty good champion. Number 7, Lex Luger, 2 reigns, 235 combined days. And his biggest reign, his longest reign, was Great American Bash 91 to Super Brawl 2 the following February. He also was a good heel. He was a much better heel than he ever was as a babyface because he wasn't a likable guy at all, at least in his career, and probably now. Moving on from my hatred for Luger. He beat Barry Windham at, Great American Bash 91. The crowd's all chanting, "We want Flair," because Jim Herd had successfully chased Flair out of the goddamn company. Jim Herd is a terrible businessman, and I really, really hope that it just eats at him that he destroyed the company, but he probably doesn't care. He probably is not aware of anything right now. It's a guy be in his 80s. Stupid skunk-haired motherfucker, but that's okay. Lex Luger was champion for a good while, and then beat Hogan shockingly just before Road Wild 97 and held it for like 5 days and then dropped it back. So he had a long reign and then a really, really short reign for the second. But, well, I got a big reaction the second reign. Then we get to number 6, Ron Simmons, 151 days, one reign. Yes, just one lone reign for Ron Simmons. But by God, when he beat Vader, it was insane. It was insane, the reaction. Everybody's crying. There was this one guy that was jumping this fan that was jumping so goddamn high with joy that he probably could have cleared the guardrail without even trying. Go back and watch the match. You'll see what I mean. The guy like had this incredible leaping ability. Fuck, book that guy in the goddamn company. But anyway, the whole point is fans were happy. Ron really, really tried. Ultimately, I can't say it worked all that well because some of the feuds that he had weren't that great. He did feud with the Barbarian, which was fine. I think he faced Steve Williams at Starrcade 92. And then he lost the title soon after that. I think he lost it back to Vader because I think Vader became champion in early 93. But still, Ron Simmons, first ever WCW Black World Heavyweight Champion. Was he the first ever Black World Heavyweight Champion? No, but of national prominence? Pretty much. I mean, even though there were others that were aware. Cable TV, big goddamn deal for Ron Simmons to be a Black World Champion. Now we have Kofi as champion. Hooray! I know it's WWE, but still. So then we get to Goldberg, 174 days, one reign. Yes, Goldberg, one reign. He beat Hogan on a Nitro instead of waiting for a pay-per-view. Big rating, big moment. That match was incredible. That was a great, great moment. And then he lost the title at Starrcade. He lost the title at Starrcade. Yeah, and then it was all downhill from there. I mean, technically he kind of won it in 99, but then he didn't because the title got held up and then the whole Mayhem tournament started. And I mean the actual tournament at an event called Mayhem, not a Mayhem tournament, though Russo was booking at the time, so you could say that either wordplay works. But Goldberg really did work hard as champion. No, he wasn't great in the ring at all. But he was what he was, and people paid big money, and he drew some big ratings, and he did help keep WCW afloat until they pretty much, put the No Country for Old Men nail gun right in his head and just left him on the side of the road. And then why is nobody watching this show? Because you fucking killed the golden goose right there is what you did. Goldberg, he's got to be up there as far as world champion. At least my opinion. Number 4, people are not going to agree with this one, but I'm ranking him here. Hulk Hogan, 6 reigns, 1,177 days. His first reign was 15 months. His second reign, just about a year. I think just under a year. His third reign, let's see. His third reign was a few months. The whole point is he had a stranglehold on the title. And 6 reigns. I mean, he was even champion at one point, like in 2000 for like a little bit. And then they stripped that because of the whole Bash at the Beach 2000 incident, which was so great. God, that was so goddamn great, wasn't it? It was terrible. It was so terrible. But anyway, Hulk Hogan, yeah, I mean, I don't want to rank him this high mainly because I didn't like how he put a stranglehold on the title, and WCW let him put a stranglehold on the title. However, he did create some good buzz, quite a bit of buzz, and he was one of the biggest stars at that point. If not the biggest star that WCW had signed, not named Ric Flair, and nothing against Sting, and nothing against others. But as far as national, worldwide, and even worldwide appeal, Hulk Hogan had that. So yeah, almost 1,200 days as champion. I got to put him up here. So anyway, we get to Vader, 377 days over 3 reigns. Look, Vader was an incredible monster heel, great champion. I don't understand why in the world Vader, however, was not given a chance to be champion a little bit longer. Yes, he was champion in 92. Yes, he was champion for a great while in 93. But it never felt like they took him as seriously as they could have. And I get kind of annoyed by that because Vader was a great monster heel and should have been champion again in 94. It was what it was, is what it is. But Vader, I mean, his 92 run was really good when he beat Sting. And then he lost it to Ron because I think he needed shoulder surgery or something. He had some kind of injury because he was off for a little bit. And his 93 run was really good. It just felt like they could have done more with him in 94 and 95. Like, he should have been the one to take the title off of Hogan, even for a couple months. But no, they couldn't fucking do that. But I'm still going to rank Vader above Hogan because I believe Vader to be a legit, tough, motherfucking badass. Number 2, Sting, 250 days, 6 reigns. Sting never held the title for very long, even as I think his NWA title run from Great American Bash 92, just after Starrcade 90, was actually his longest world title run ever. I mean, until his Impact run, but still in WCW. But yeah, 250 days, I mean, God, it was only like an average of like, no, not even 60 days. I think it was less than 50, it was like 40 days. It was just still so ridiculous. Sting was a great champion, though. He was the guy. He was the franchise. He was the man. And he was, I think Ric Flair described him best. He was their Ultimate Warrior, except he was 10 times better. And he was a good guy on top of it. But yeah, Sting's got to belong up here. But number 1, Ric Flair, 505 days, 8 reigns. Yes, this is probably including the NWA title a little bit. But the whole point is 505 days as champion. I mean, anytime he held the WCW title, it meant something. It really fucking meant something. Yes, from, it was mainly from 93 when he came back and held the title for a while. And he never had the title for as long as he did, like in the Jim Crockett promotion era, but he still had that moment, and that he still had all the moments and all the pageantry and everything to make himself a tremendous world champion. Now, before I close, though, folks, I want to bring somebody on to give their opinion about who they think is the best world champion. His favorite world champion of all time is Sting. I asked him, it's because he had face paint like him. This, by the way, is my cat. In case you didn't figure that out, what type of pet he was. It's a rescue. I encourage you guys to rescue pets from shelters, that kind of stuff. He's great therapy. Really? You don't want to say goodbye to the audience? Okay. Anyway, folks. Brought the producer on here. Yes, I call the cats the producers. But anyway, agree, disagree, what I said. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I will see you soon.